Ollie, thanks for having me back. I guess perhaps something happened positively 2 years ago. It's obviously taken you 2 years to get me back, but I'm assuming that that there was good reason to have me back. For those of you who don't know myself, I'm Justin Stephenson. I'm a senior partner at Sandler. We kind of consider ourselves a boutique business transformation and performance enhancement consultancy. And we tend to find ourselves working with founders, owners of startups and scale-ups who are deeply passionate about what they do. They're deeply passionate about their offering and how they go to market. And when we find ourselves working with those individuals, it tends to be where their own revenue ambitions and expectations aren't being met that they set for themselves. Or they're finding that they're struggling to get in front of new opportunities. Or when they do get in front of those new opportunities, they seem not to progress fast enough. And then they're not closing at the ratios that they want. And this is then putting huge pressure on their business in terms of perhaps cash flow in the business. They might even be finding themselves that they're having to pay their staff before they can pay themselves, which is really annoying when you're trying to grow a business. It could be the fact that they're spending a bunch of time putting proposals and presentations together that seem to go nowhere. They get ghosted by customers. They spend a whole bunch of time chasing opportunities that really evaporate. And so we tend to get brought in to help organizations think about their strategies, their structures, their systems, and their skill sets in order to become more effectual in how they sell, how they go to market. Now, obviously, I don't know your realities. None of those might be the issues that you might be facing. But the reality is, I have yet to come across a business that does not want to grow. Who does not want to grow here? Okay, good. Right. I've never yet come across a business that doesn't want to grow. And so when I'm thinking about your ambitions are either being well exceeded, or I'm guessing there's a reason why you came to this conversation today. Why? I'm going to go around the table. Why did you come to this invitation that Ollie put to you, specifically around kind of sales? Spencer, can I go to you? What was the intrigue, the curiosity, maybe the insanity that you put upon yourself to come into this conversation today?
Yeah, no insanity. I've got an established service business with a software offering as well, but I have not attempted to grow the business anything other than sort of organically with referrals. Now I've got a point where I've got to start creating that sales pipeline. So I'm really actually a startup in terms of sales. So I'm trying to pick up as much information from this group as I can.
Okay, so referrals, introductions have been your kind of word of mouth approach to prospecting, growing,
Yeah.
building pipe. But
Yeah.
now you want to get to that next level of performance.
I
And
want to be able to control that, actually have a mechanism that I can sort of rely on, if you like, to a certain degree. If I do a certain amount of activity, how much am I expecting to get out of that? And I can hopefully sort of tweak that to say, I want more, so let's go for more, or, I want to slow down, so I'll slow down. So,
okay.
but yeah, that type of thing.
Well, I guess the reality of our 30 minutes together here on Ollie's channel, I'm probably not going to solve everybody's problems just by sprinkling some pixie dust. But perhaps we can talk about some things that might give you some things to consider. Gareth, what was your reason for joining this session today?
Yeah, for us actually, I mean, super topical for me. So my role is strategic partnerships manager, and I come from a sales background, but selling vehicles. I used to work for Audi. So selling our platform, selling tech is a completely different audience. So just looking for any kind of like tricks in terms of the best way to make an impact when you're selling like a different product, I guess.
Okay. Okay, that's quite a different spin than Spencer's.
Mhm.
Martin, how about yourself? What made you give up 30 minutes of your most valuable time as a business owner running a business, and you just don't have any time to do anything, but you're going to come onto a call like this for 30 minutes and potentially waste it?
Presumably, I'm the only Martin here.
Hey, Marty, good to see you.
Yeah, I'm obviously a follower of yours anyway, Justin. I've recently joined this company, and there's essentially no business pipeline at all. It's being built from the ground up. Although it's an established business, there's been nothing really done with it for probably 4 or 5 years in terms of sales. So it's really about sort of getting a refresher and starting to reach out to other businesses and trying to find out a little bit about stand up to startup as well, which is a new concept I've not been involved with. So I
Okay,
thought it was
great.
interesting to meet the people that are involved in this and to hear more from you as always, Justin.
Great. Neil, can I ask you what was the curiosity that forced you to spend 30 minutes here?
I always come to as many of the startup to stand up calls, learning more about businesses. I am a service-based business, so obviously sales is important, but for me, kind of understanding the challenges that founders face, because founders are quite often my clients.
Great. Okay. Anyone else want to, before I keep going around the house, anyone else have another sort of curiosity about where their business is at? What are their challenges that they're facing that they would love to try and figure out how to solve? Robin, you came off mute. Sounded like you wanted to dive in on something.
Just framing my thoughts. I'm in the position of testing a new marketing offer, a new proposition to the market, to a degree related, but to a degree a bit of a pivot from previous activities. And curious on your thoughts on sort of 0 to 1, getting from nothing to viable, I guess, if you use that fuzzy word, marketing, sales, proposition, pipeline.
Okay. So let me start here, and we can sort of come back to some of these things. Has anyone ever read Atomic Habits? James Clear's book. Anyone read this? So page 27, there's a great quote, and I've kind of nicked it, but it really helps summarize what most businesses deal with. And this is the reality, is that businesses actually don't rise to the level of their goals and ambitions. They fall to the level of their systems and processes. So when we're dealing with any need for change, any ambition to do something different, either in your own business or helping your customers do something different in their business, we have to have a systematic way of doing that. We have to have a structured process in order to facilitate that. So when we're engaging with tackling a problem, there's only ever 2 fundamental problems you have in selling. Any guesses on what they are? Dan, what if you were sitting there reflecting on what I just said, there's only 2 problems that you have in driving opportunities and new business. Any thoughts on what they are?
I would say, well, kind of 2 things. Yeah, 2 things would be locating the right people, the right channels, the right opportunities, and approaching them. Because obviously, if you need to sell your product to your target audience, so that would be the first thing. And the second thing is having the confidence or courage to be able to go in and do that and execute it to the point where it's clear of what you're selling. So I think that's the turn. Obviously, being confident in your product, confident in your messaging, in your services, whatever it may be. So I think that's probably the two biggest challenges. That's what I struggle with is well, not so much locating my target audience, because I know exactly who that is, but
Right.
it's the confidence of getting that message across. And I know a lot about, I'm a customer experience consulting business, but as we discussed with Ollie at the beginning of this call, I find it very difficult to portray what I do and how it can help people. So therefore, I find it very difficult to sell, obviously.
So what you've actually done very brilliantly and beautifully, and it would almost, I could almost imagine that perhaps we've had a prior conversation setting this this call up today, is that actually the only two challenges that any organization has around their sales challenges or sales difficulties fall into these camps. One is a conceptual problem. Conceptual problem is simply perhaps knowing what you should be doing, but you choose not to do it because it's either outside of your comfort zone. It's, so Spencer, I don't know that this is your reality, but obviously very comfortable talking to people in your network, people in your expanded network who you can rely on to get you introductions, to get you those referrals. But perhaps I don't know, but perhaps you're less comfortable picking up a phone, calling somebody you've never spoken to before, you don't have any referral introduction to, they are completely a cold prospect for you. But you know that if you were to do that on some level, that would probably yield some benefit and output. But you don't do it because it's not in your, well, it might be not in your comfort zone. You might think that's beneath you. You might think I'm just going to be irritating somebody. You might be sitting there going, I don't have the time to do it. There could be all these conceptual reasons that prevent you from doing that thing that you know you should be doing. Could be.
I think the first reason is I just haven't tried it yet. This is, say, I'm just sort of embarking on this. So I'm trying to sort of get the, identify the ideal clients, identify the messaging and all that sort of stuff at the moment. So I'm just sort of trying to put all that together.
Brilliant.
But yeah, probably when I get into it, we'll see, and I don't think right now I would be comfortable in doing that unless I'd actually got that confidence, as Dan was saying, to know exactly what I'm talking about.
So then that comes into exactly the other thing that Dan said that perhaps would resonate with you, Spencer, as well, which is then it's the technical ability to do these things. So if you've not done something before, you don't know how to do it, you don't know what to say, you don't know what the approach is to take. It's then tackling these two things that fundamentally are either going to be your blockers to growing, your blockers to engaging with those ICPs, or again, technically you don't know what you should be doing in terms of that process. So again, as James Clear said, we don't rise to the level of our ambitions and goals. We fall to our level of our systems and processes, which fundamentally need to be in there so that you can manage, you can track, you can monitor, you can evaluate, you can measure where you are in your process. Because at the end of the day, and this comes back to what Dan was saying, which is that fundamentally for, and again, if Neil's talking to some of his customers, and Robin, you might be thinking about this yourself, ultimately, we all build our business by putting stuff in our pipeline. And our pipeline is ultimately going to be the thing that gives us the predictability of how our business is going to grow. And yet, most businesses suffer with what I call FPS. Anyone ever heard that term before? It's called fluffy pipeline syndrome. And what fluffy pipeline syndrome is that a combination of not having a clear ICP, a clear identifiable customer that you want to pursue. So you just stuff anything into your pipeline with the hope that something will happen. And yet we know that the integrity of a pipeline is fundamentally going to be driven off your ability to capture net new leads. So lead generation tends to be a real problematic area for a lot of businesses. Again, it could be a combination of both conceptual and technical challenges of how do you get those quality opportunities into the pipeline. And I'm going to give you an example of a conversation that I had with my newest client. Fairly sizable organization. They have 7 salespeople. They're doing about 4 million turnover. And when I was reviewing their pipeline, I sat down with Sarah and I said, let's have a look at your pipeline. How many opportunities do you have in your pipe across your 7 sales reps? She goes, oh, I've got about 500. I went, what? You got 500 deals in your pipeline? She goes, yeah. And I'm going, this is a classic case of FPS, where those reps were just stuffing whatever they could feel they could get their hands onto to make themselves feel better about what is in front of them. But the reality is that they're smoking something very strong. We call it hopium, where fundamentally, they're just hoping that this stuff is going to come through. And what they haven't yet figured out is they haven't really determined how winnable those opportunities are, because they haven't put very clear, stringent qualification criteria around determining whether or not that opportunity should actually sit in their pipe in the first place, let alone progressing it through the pipeline. And when we did an assessment on their business, we found out that everybody knows the answer to this question. What is the only 2 outcomes you want from a conversation with a prospective client? What's the only 2 outcomes you want from a prospective client? Sue, go on.
Either a sale or a next step in the diary.
I like that. Definitely, I like both of those options, but really, fundamentally, the only outcome we're going to really look for is a yes or a no. That's all we want. Wouldn't take away that opportunity, Sue, absolutely. Wouldn't want to take that away. Here's the reality, is that it takes most organizations 3 times longer to get to a no than to get to a yes. And the no is coming. The no is coming. So even if, Sue, you get a next step in a meeting, you need to know that you're closer to a yes than a no. And yet, fluffy pipeline syndrome, where we have this challenge around pipeline integrity, is that people love to stuff into their pipeline with the hope and ambition that it's going to actually become a winnable opportunity, because they haven't sat down and really determined what qualifies that prospect to go into your pipeline, and then what qualifies them out. And because most people in business have what we call happy ears, we're pathologically optimistic We're smoking opium. We're expecting things to move through the pipe because we've had a conversation, but we're not being assertive enough. We're not being assertive enough to actually get to a no quicker. And the quicker you get to a no, the quicker you get to real opportunities. So then you need to be able to figure out, how do you control? So coming back to what Sue said, if you do not have a controlled opportunity sitting in your pipeline, and a controlled opportunity means they've been qualified, coming back to systemizing your criteria of why that prospect sits in your pipeline, and you haven't got a clear commitment of a future engagement with a customer, then there's absolutely no reason for that opportunity to be in your pipe. Who's ever been ghosted by a prospect where you've done a great proposal, you put something down, you felt absolutely convinced that they were interested in your offering. You put a great proposal, you did a great presentation, the best one you've ever done, thought they were going to sign, and then they've gone into witness protection and you can't find them anywhere on the face of the planet, right? Ever happen? Dan, that's so frustrating, right? So frustrating. And this is simply because we haven't yet been able to manage how to control future commitments with those customers. There's a way to do it. There's a way to ensure there's a mutually agreed alignment to what's going to happen in order to facilitate maintaining that control. And the problem is, if you don't have, like James said in his book, if you don't have a systematic way of managing and controlling these conversations, you default to the way the buyer is going to treat you. And if you want to be treated that way by your buyer, carry on. Your pipeline just carries on being fluffy. And therefore, you don't have a way to be able to predictably manage the progression of your pipeline through a systematic way of doing things so that you get to no's quicker, therefore knowing how to make sure that you've got more confidence and predictability into your yeses. So we've got 5 minutes. I'm hoping you weren't going to expect that I was going to suddenly change your world on a penny in a conversation. But here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about these areas of your pipeline. Do you really have a good system to generate those leads, those opportunities? Do you have a really stringently qualified process, first to determine whether an opportunity goes into your pipeline in the first place, and then what are the criteria to get it out of your pipeline as quickly as possible if it's not qualified to meet your ambitions of where that opportunity could go to? Do you have a controlled opportunity? A controlled opportunity is that you've got a mutually agreed alignment with your customer about what's going to happen next. It's diarized, but again, it's not a hope. It's not a hope that this meeting is going to happen, but it's absolutely clearly defined, and that you know how to progress that opportunity through a predictable system of what I will call sales gates to know how to get to a predictable closed opportunity. I want you to think about those sort of things, because ultimately they will become the things that get in your way or they don't get in your way, either conceptually or technically. So Ollie, I'm gonna belt up at this point. If anyone wants to take a grab of that QR code, it will give you access to a little survey that will help you put some spotlight to some challenges and challenge areas that you might be having in your respective business. Again, it's going to enable you to start thinking a little differently about where perhaps some of the challenges that you might be having could be resolved, and I think Peter, I can see Peter's beautiful, lovely car there, but I can't see Peter. I think Peter did complete this questionnaire already, so thank you for doing that. Did you get a copy of it back, by the way?
Hello?
Hello.
Did I get a copy of it back, you said?
Yeah.
Possibly. I've checked my emails earlier on, but I didn't see anything. But I'll check again in a little while. I'm just
I'll make sure you do.
Yeah,
I'll make
I'm
sure
not
you
your
do.
typical. I mean, I'm here because I'm trying to keep up to speed with what the business world is about now. I'm still looking for investment before I get to my sales, and my sales experience in the past has been about bespoke products. So it's different to like selling Mars bars and things like that, you know. So
All right.
thank you. Very good. Anyway, very interesting.
I mean, obviously, we had a very, very short window together, and there's a ton of things behind those conceptual problems and those technical problems that, unto themselves, you know, could take days, months, and years to unpack. But if you just go back and think about that pipeline integrity piece, that is ultimately kind of your starting point. And I just encourage you to get as much fluff out of your pipeline as possible, so you can really focus on those real controlled and progressing opportunities to give you some sense of predictability and confidence in the outcome. So Ollie, I'm happy to hang around. I don't know if anyone has any questions that they want to kind of throw at me specifically.
I want to open some questions up. I think this is a really important area. So has anyone got any questions for Justin this morning? What we've covered here? There must be something, because the sales process, closing, pipeline come up a lot. Anyone? Dan and then Sue.
Yeah, so like I said,
Mark.
regarding, like I said, my kind of challenges, is it worth, like I said, whether the way that the guy that Ollie shared with me explained and kind of put the importance of CX on was way better than I could probably describe it. So before I start to shout about and do that sales pitch, is it worth me trying to speak, like find some, like really defining that messaging and maybe doing some testing of what gets people's attention most, like A/B testing and whatever it may be? Is that worth something you'd say, like defining that to get your funnel clear, like perfectly clear?
So here's a challenge, and Sue's going to hate me for this. Too many organizations focus on their value prop. Too many organizations, because they think their value prop is going to resonate with their customer, and actually it's not your value prop that they care about. It's their problem prop, their problem proposition. And if you haven't clearly defined your problem proposition that you solve for, it doesn't matter what you do, because companies don't care. They really don't care what you do as a business. They have zero interest in what you do. They have zero interest in how you do it. The only interest they have is you being able to solve their problem or not. And if you haven't clearly articulated how you do that in your interactions and your conversation, and you jump into a conversation and you try and slap down, I call it pitch slapping. You know, if you pitch slap somebody, you're dead. You're dead in the water, because you're no different. You're zero different to your competition. So if you try and pitch slap somebody without understanding their problems, and there's a methodology that you've got to go through to understand what their problems are. And if you can't do that, because you haven't been able to identify the KPI that they are struggling with, you haven't been able to identify the gap of that KPI in terms of where they are now and where they want to be, and then you haven't been able to quantify the value of that gap, of that KPI of where they are now and where they want to be, and you haven't been able to quantify the value of that gap over time, you're not moving that opportunity anywhere far forward.
Cool, because there's kind of two attack points where, not attack points, but kind of two points where I could go in. So number one is, which I most commonly do, it's a bit like Gordon Ramsay's kitchen nightmares. When a restaurant is completely a lost cause, he comes in and fixes everything and sorts everything out and makes it profitable again. So that's kind of the one thing I do with customers, is when they realize their customers are dropping like flies, they've got terrible reviews on TripAdvisor and Trustpilot, and that's generally when I get called in to go and fix things. However, the other opportunity is if a business is being set up, you need that customer experience strategy from day one to make sure that the customers you acquire stay. Make sure you've got great insights coming into the behavior and where the pain points are, so you can continually adapt and learn. There's no point in starting your business and a year down the line going, well, actually, we have no idea what our customers are, how our customers are feeling. Like, you need to know that from day one. So that's luckily my most recent client is like that. They're very good. They want everything set up straight away, but that's very few and far between. Most people, that I hear the same old thing from potential clients, which is when I put my hand up earlier, it's like, oh yeah, when we finish our round of investment, we'll give you a shout. Or when we launch our product, we'll give you a shout. When we hit profit, when we hit 20,000 customers, we'll give you a shout. Or there's always an excuse. Whereas from my point of view, there is no excuse. You need a CX strategy from day one.
Right. And so fundamentally, and I'm sure you do this brilliantly, Dan, is that as you're going through that initial conversation with that prospect, what you're doing effectively when you're determining what's the impact, what's the future impact, if they don't have that experience that's established now, the impact that they will feel in the future and the potential implications on their business if they don't get it right now, and you haven't made them see from here to here. And I'm sure you do it brilliantly, but if they don't, it's the way to put it is this: who here invests in insurance on insurance on your car, insurance on your house, insurance on your diamonds, right? You spend a ton of money now, right, purely to give you a confidence for de-risking a problem in the future. That's what is called gain. If you can't see the gain and establish that gain for your customers, then they have no compelling reason to change and do something different.
I think that's a great way. Like, if I can kind of work out some terminology around, ensuring your customer retention for the future or something like that, some kind of, I'll have to think it through properly. And
if I can suggest this, Dan, it's not even about that. It's about, imagine you have all those customers in the future and then suddenly they disappear. What's the implication that's going to have on your business?
The other thing that I hear quite often, which is a great phrase, well, which I say quite often rather, is what if it works? So there's all these sales funnels, all these marketing channels and stuff to try and acquire all of these customers. But what if it works? Can you handle those customers? Can you service the customers at a high level? Remember, Miles Dickinson came on and he said that straight after he was on Dragon's Den, his business just shot up and they just couldn't handle the customers. And again, so what if it works? If people are kind of don't want to tempt fate and like don't want to think too far on in case it doesn't. But again, what if it works? You're screwed. And
Well, like in every decision, right? You'll be going through this with your own customers. You'll be doing, it's the first condition that they have to feel in engaging with you is A, are they safer with you or without you? If they're safer with you, how do you ensure that they de-risk what you help enable them to achieve? Because if that can't happen, if that de-risking does not happen, then again, it doesn't matter how great a relationship builder you are, because a lot of us sit here and go, oh, the only way we're going to get business is having great relationships. Well, yeah, we all know that. But if you can't de-risk their decision process to get you there, then unfortunately, you're just not going anywhere.
It's great advice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's given me lots to think about over the weekend. So yeah, cheers.
Great.
Thanks, thanks, Dan. So,
Hi, Justin. Yeah, you're wrong, by the way, because I spent a lot of my marketing presentation the other day to Startup to Stand Up, telling them it really wasn't about them. It was really about the customer. So I couldn't agree more that, you know, it's not about what you can do, but their problem.
Well, again, it's
yeah.
and I'm not going to fight you on that one. I don't disagree. I don't disagree, but most organizations, I'm glad that you're changing this perspective. They go in, they open their laptop up and they go, look what we can do. Look at all this wonderful stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And so if you're getting them to change and think differently, fantastic.
Well, I'm trying. You can only try, right? So I mean, as far as my kind of sales challenge goes, I'm a very small marketing agency, but we did a lot of things a couple of years ago. I started to learn how to sell and started to quite enjoy it. To the point that we tripled last year. I think we'll double again this year, and I hope double again the following year.
Fantastic. That's amazing.
But we've cracked the lead flow. We have too many, so we're tightening that up. We've kind of cracked the routine. So I do follow-up Friday every time. I spend a bit of time on sales every day. I am trying to be, I've tightened the proposal process, so it's not taking as much time. I guess the question is, what next? Because for me, it's really about the efficiency of the process. Partly that's measuring it, I know, and my proposal conversion could be better, so I'm focusing on that. But what comes next in terms of getting really efficient with sales, as with no sales team? Obviously, it's me.
Control.
Elaborate.
So here's a really harsh statement. Buyers are liars. And what I mean by that is this, because I know you all are all liars. And you're thinking, well, how rude is this guy? So here's how I know. So you've gone off, you've done all your research, you're about to go off and buy that massive 65-inch telly that you're going to be putting on your showcase wall in your living room. You've picked out the brand, you've picked out the spec, you've picked out the investment that you're going to make, and you walk into Curry's and you see it beautifully hung on the wall, or maybe going to John Lewis and you see it there and you're going, oh, I can't wait to see that in my living room. And you've got an intention to buy that thing. And the sales person on the shop floor comes up to you and says, can I help you? And you say, I'm just looking. We all do it. Buyers are liars. Now, it's not because they have an intention of misleading you, but they are wrestling with their chimp brain. They don't trust you. And so the only way you can facilitate progressing something through with control is that you have to have a systematic way of being able to understand the human psychology of what's going on in their head and being able to manage a conversation in a deliberate fashion by having a fundamentally agreed alignment to what's going to happen. There's a systematic way of doing that. And until you can control that, and so I have huge empathy of the environment in which you deal with, because most agencies are treated so badly by their customers because they love to steal all your ideas. You end up doing a bunch of free consulting, and they will do everything to minimize the value they place on you. And because buyers are liars, If you don't have a systematic way to control them, then they're going to control you. And by controlling you, your conversion ratios are through the floor. You have very little opportunity to predict outcome and wins because they've got a system to manage you. And it's a hard reality. So that's what I mean by control. You have to have a controlled process to be able to be 100% confident to say, these are the criteria that I'm going to, and the rules by which I will live by, that if my customers don't meet those rules, they are out. So I'm not going to give free consulting away. I'm not going to do pitches and not be paid for it. I'm not going to give a whole bunch of ideas away without some kind of contractual agreement. And I'm also going to control the conversation to get a higher level of predictability of outcome. So control is what everybody has to have in order to progress an opportunity. And that control is one of the hardest things to, I will call, adjust in how you engage with a customer, because we all feel, well, we've got a next step. We've got a next meeting in the calendar. Great. But that doesn't mean you actually have control, because that customer may not show up. They may not do what you said them that they needed to do. But they may not give you the access to the other people that you need to get access to in order to progress and control that opportunity. And the most critical thing is that every single buyer wants to have control.
Yeah.
But you have to control them. And you have to do it so that they don't feel threatened, that you don't feel as if you're being non-collaborative or you're being obstructive, but there is a way to be able to control them in a way that they still feel safer with you, Dan, than without you. Neil's got his hand up, I think.
Yes, I do. Thanks, Justin. I guess it's a challenge point on businesses not caring about, I guess, or businesses broadcasting everything about their business and expecting the customers to care.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Can you?
Well, just to say yourself as Sue and yourself were talking about kind of in regards to, I guess the customer doesn't care about your business. You know, I think we were mentioning that. So I guess my question was around, as founders, but also there is a growing trend amongst younger generations that businesses care about ethics, care about your authenticity, care about your provenance, care about the storytelling, because that's the thing that makes us stand out from the corporate monoliths. You know, why should somebody do business with you rather than somebody, you know, in a different country, a faceless IT company, a large corporate? And I just wondered, you know, because that's part of what I do as a business, is people actually helping people understand why they're doing it, their principles, the things moving forward. So I was just wondering, in your experience, the people you're working with, how important do you feel that authenticity and ethics are?
Oh, I think they're hugely important. Absolutely. I think those are table stakes now. I mean, that's kind of hygiene factors. The reality, again, there is that 78% of businesses are already 67% of their way through their decision process before they even engage with you. So they've already done a huge amount of work to understand you before you are even in your first conversation. And they are evaluating you exactly on those sorts of things, Neil, about that integrity, about that reputation, about your ethics, about your value structures. They've done all that homework. And of course, without question, I would say that in order for them to de-risk making a decision to go with you, that they're doing all of that pre-work beforehand. And so equally, the way you show up, the way you present yourself differently is not what you sell, but it's how you sell. And that distinction of how you sell is going to be your differentiator. Because by the time they've engaged with you, they've evaluated you. They know that this is, reputationally, there's an ethics quotient here that they've evaluated you on. But you're going to differentiate yourself based on how you sell. Because let me tell you, I don't think I can come up with any organization that is out there today that maybe the only organization that comes to mind that is so differentiated in its marketplace that they have no competition is LinkedIn. Everyone else has a competitor. And therefore, your customer has immediately put you into the commodity box. So every business is based on the way a customer sees you, a buyer looks at you, you are nothing more than a commodity. But we don't want to be seen as that, right? We want to be seen as a value creator. We want to be seen as a value contributor. We want to be seen way more than just being a commodity. But it's therefore how you sell and how you show up will be the difference between whether they buy you on price or they buy you on value. It's how you show up.
Super, thank you. And I think we've got to understand that the generations are different as well in how that ranks.
Hugely.
I guess that there's a certain age group. I think maybe Gareth is possibly a little bit young, but we're of a certain kind of experience level. But those in 30s, 20s, etc., their values are decidedly different from us, and the way they want to engage with our businesses are decidedly different as well.
Absolutely, and all those, as you say, all those textual things about authenticity, about genuineness, about moral fiber, all those things absolutely come into play. However, the one unifying thing that does not change and will never change, what is it? What's that one unifying thing that will never change? Go on, Dan.
You?
Yeah, we're human. And if we don't understand all those, as you say, Neil, all those value constructs are absolutely crucial, and they're different between generations without question, whether you're a Gen Z, a Gen Y, a millennial, a baby boomer, it doesn't matter. The one thing that will never change is the human condition. And if you don't understand that, and you use that within your sales process and how you show up, you're dead. I hate to be so black and white about it, but it's kind of true, right? If you have anyone know Dan Pink? I don't have his book here, but Daniel Pink, read this book. It's called To Sell is Human. It's a fantastic read. And if you think about it, it's all about the humanization of how we need to interact and engage with another human. That dimension is never going to change. The criteria and the evaluation structures, like the ones that Neil's suggested, will absolutely always evolve. But the thing that will never change is the human condition and how we engage with them.
You're going to get a lot of big ups, love, and attention on LinkedIn. That brand you said has got no competition later today and over the weekend. So get ready for that, Justin, because this has been really, really good.
Appreciate
If
that.
you want a recommendation, I'm sure there will be people in the startup to stand-up community who will be able to do that as well. All right.
Always open to have a, again, a very casual conversation with anybody about their challenges, again, with no expectation of anything other than just having a chat. And Marty, good to see you. It's been a while. And Ollie, thank you. Reach out, Marty. We've obviously done some work together in the past. So if you are wanting to have some, again, just understandings of challenges that you're dealing with, happy to have a chat.